From the creators of the original cheat sheet rankings, this is the Fantasy Index Podcast. Brought to you by Fantasy Index, the original and best since 1987. Now your hosts, Luke Wilson and Colt Williams.
Welcome to the first Waiver Wire episode of 2024 of the Fantasy Index Podcast. With me once again, the inestimable Colt Williams. I am Luke Wilson. Colt, how did your fantasy teams fare in week one?
Yeah, so in week one, I'm in 7 leagues. Really only 2 matter. And it's depending which one I'm winning in is what actually matter. But I won in 6, lost in 1. I lost in 1 because Christian McCaffrey, I had to sub in Jawan Jennings last minute for him.
Pain.
And let's just say he didn't get enough. He didn't get what Christian McCaffrey would have gotten. How'd your teams go?
You know, week one can make somebody who talks about fantasy football for a living feel like they need to change careers. And no, I did okay. I got winged by the McCaffrey fiasco in 1 week in one league. I was able to get Mason in the lineup, so that was good. But then Jake Moody kicked me to death from the other side. Anyway,
yeah,
darn you, Cody from the Dallas League. Yeah, I did all right. I think I went 5-4 in my redraft leagues, or sorry, my money leagues. So, you know, honestly, week one I'll take it because week one is so unpredictable. Speaking of unpredictability, let's launch it. We got a lot to get through, so we're going 4-minute offense here all the way through. Obviously, well, it was a relatively tame first week one injury-wise until it wasn't just a few hours ago. Colt, why don't you take us through the most relevant injuries that people might want to hear a little bit more about from week one?
Yeah, so week one, weird week for fantasy, weirder week for injuries. Jordan Love, it was a fluky last, one of the last plays of the game.
Right.
He got twisted up. I think it was a MCL, certainly a knee injury. He's out for like 3 to 6 weeks. He avoids the IR, so they're optimistic about it. But if he avoids the IR, you can't put him on an IR spot, depending on most leagues. That's a bit of a bummer. What that means for all the pass catchers in Green Bay, I'm not excited for him. If I could trade high, I certainly would. David Njoku, he's considered week to week. We've got Jake Ferguson, MCL sprain. He's going to miss some time. Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert, two guys who kind of lit it up last year, started to light it up here this week, at least on Achane's side. Both missed practice here this week. So we're going to be mentioning Jalen Wright in the running back pickup section.
For sure.
Yep. Roma Dunze undergo MRI on his knee. And then probably the 2 biggest ones, Christian McCaffrey, we just talked about it just a little bit. He missed Monday Night Football. He was optimistic that he was going to be playing as of Saturday, and then his calf Achilles injury just ended up holding him out. Maybe that's Shanahan just thinking long term for the team. They know that they're going to be making it to the playoffs. They want to do it with Christian McCaffrey. They felt confident with Jordan Mason, and sure enough, they were right. Yeah. What are you thinking about Christian McCaffrey? Any insight on what's going to happen next week? This seems like it was a late scratch.
I was actually just going to ask you that. Okay, obviously, if you took McCaffrey, you took him 1.1, so your investment level literally can't be higher in redraft right now. Maybe you got him at 1.2, somebody pulled some goofiness in your draft. Anyway, you're maxed out on McCaffrey, right? And now this happens. Colt, I'm going to kick it back to you. If somebody in your league comes to you and they want to get in on the McCaffrey experience right now, and they're willing to give you their first rounder to do it, keeping in mind that, sure, yes, McCaffrey hopefully is back soon. And early rumblings are not super optimistic for McCaffrey for week 2. It's early, but even assuming that he does come back week 2, week 3, does Christian McCaffrey not have a Jordan Mason problem now going forward? Somebody comes to you in a league and offers you Saquon Barkley for Christian McCaffrey right now. How seriously are you considering that offer?
I mean, that's trading high. A 3-touchdown game from Barkley. I mean, I'd probably do
Achilles.
It. Yeah. I mean, I would probably do it just simply because.
Right? I mean,
it's a very good question to ask. And Barkley, in some leagues, wasn't even a first-round pick. It was like early second.
Yeah.
So
it hurts for sure.
I mean, I think I would probably do that. It could be a Yeah, that's a very, very tough question. I hate that
Tough.
question. But that's where we are, so, hopefully everything works out for Christian McCaffrey, but if you could trade him for somebody who's just as high as a caliber who doesn't have a injury designation, maybe you just do that.
I think I'm with you. Like, I get the appeal of Christian McCaffrey, but it's a 17 game sprint -1. We're already one game in the can, so now it's a 16 game sprint. Over the next 16 games, how much ceiling are you willing to give up to raise the floor of your late first round pick if you trade it for Barkley or Jonathan Taylor, Bijan Robinson, whatever? I would do it. I would do it because if I felt that the rest of my team was solid, and hopefully yours is, yeah, I'm with you. And then obviously the other bombshell, and I'm going to have to give you an earful on this later. Puka Nacua, after he bangs up his knee in preseason, and then against the Lions on Sunday Night Football last night, I'm actually not even sure if it was the same knee. I think it was, but goes down with a knee injury against the Lions, leaves the game, and now the Rams tell us today, a few hours ago, he is going on IR for the next 4 weeks. What are we doing here, Colt? I mean, should we save that for when we talk about the Rams, the Rams wide receiver medley? We probably should.
Yeah, we got some people that are going to fill in there at the wide receiver role. We believe. So it's going to be,
Just
pick your poison. Yeah, it's going to be Cooper Kupp, but
right.
Who is going to be the wide receiver 2 for the
21
team?
targets for the timeless Kupp, week 1, unbelievable.
That's crazy. Let's go ahead and jump into this next little section we got. It's called the worry meter.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about some players. We're going to kind of rapid fire these ones. I'm going to give you a name. It's a player who is probably drafted high. You tell me on a scale of 1 to 10, kind of how worried are you? You don't have to go in great detail, but just kind of where you are, and I'll tell you where I am.
Sure.
Mark Andrews, starting off hot.
And we're scale of 1 to 10?
1 to 10.
1 to 10. I'm going to say it's a 3. I'm not panicking, but I'm not reacting. I mean, I need some major normalization of the targets in week 2 here for the Ravens, for sure. Like, sure, it's Likely's not going to catch 9 balls a game, and they can, even Likely and Andrews can be on the field at the same time. Likely's not really a tight end anyway, and they certainly didn't use him that way. But and the Chiefs were pretty much giving the Ravens a lot of those throws. But also, this is not a passing offense that had a ton of room to spare in the target, volume that there is to go around. So even half this many targets, half of the 12 that Likely got in week 1, all of a sudden, the path for Andrews to get to 800 yards receiving is close. So I'm not worrying because, if Andrews comes out and gives you 725 yards and 6 to 8 touchdowns, you're not adjusting his numbers down that much, but it hurts.
Yeah, no, we were talking about it before the podcast. I would trade like Jaden Reed for Mark Andrews, kind of trade high, especially with the quarterback situation in Green Bay, for Mark Andrews having this down game if I could. Likely is the real deal, but I'm not really worried about Andrews. For that aspect. We
have to think that he's going to be fine. He's making a fair amount of money this year.
Yeah, he certainly is. Another person who's making a lot of money, Deshaun Watson. We were on the worry meter. We have another section called drop candidates, because to pick somebody up on waivers, you have to drop somebody. Deshaun Watson's a drop candidate for me. I'll just go ahead and, so I guess that's a 10. He's on the same scale as you.
Before we start, so we have show notes before we start, and when Colt put in the worry meter section, we hadn't delineated what is it, 1 to 5 or is it 1 to 10. So my note was, what's your worry rating on Deshaun Watson? I put 5 or 10 or high, whatever the scale is here. I watched this game wire to wire, and it is hard to understate how impossible any sort of turnaround feels for Watson and for this Cleveland offense as long as it's flowing through Watson. Yes, it was week 1, and lots of passing games put up stinkers this week. This was different. Okay, the Browns are a good team that, as far as we can tell, cannot beat other good teams if their $230 million quarterback is playing, period. This is heading toward the Russell Wilson disaster scenario at full speed. He's got like 1 or 2 games to figure this out. And yes, again, it was week 1, so maybe he bounces back with even 200 yards passing, with 150 of it not coming in the fourth quarter when the game's already over. Even that would buy him some time, but he has to do it right now, or things are going to start happening here, Colt. I don't care about the contract after a certain point.
Yeah, I think the Browns are thinking the same thing. Travis Kelce, I don't think either one of us are worried about him.
Nah.
Xavier Worthy being added to the offense, he can kill a drive in one single play. We saw that twice.
True.
So that's going to happen from time to time, not every time. So, yeah, Kelsey's still.
And his receiving touchdown was a total blown coverage, and like he wasn't even covered. So Noah Gray is not going to out target Travis Kelce most games, folks.
Yep. Kirk Cousins, any worry about him?
There seems to be a fair amount, actually, after week one. And I don't know if that's lingering Falcons by. I think it is lingering, like, just general Falcons, like, oh, this is just it's in their DNA. And I'm not going to say it's strictly impossible, but I watched a lot of this one, and the Steelers beat the Falcons offense like rented mules for 4 quarters, okay? I mean, TJ Watt and that whole front was coming after it because he only got sacked twice, but I mean, they were knocking the Falcons off schedule. I mean, this is we presume this is a timing-based offense, and the Steelers took it to them and made it a very physical game and blew the Falcons' timing to smithereens. And I mean, nobody was open. So I think it's going to be fine. And I'm not worried about really any of the other pass catchers either. But against us, week 2 against Philadelphia, who Jordan Love just had a pretty good game against, even though he only completed like 50% of his passes, we do need to see the Falcons correct here in week 2 for sure.
Yeah, no, we certainly do. So Drake London, I don't think either one of us are worried about him.
No, if anybody in your league is panicking on Drake London, I would see, hey, Jaden Reed, like you said.
And same thing with these next 2 guys, Marvin Harrison Jr., Dalton Kincaid. If anybody's panicking on them, as well as Drake London, like I'm buying in.
I agree, but just on Kincaid, there's not even a little part of you that's a little nervous about how democratic the targets were week 1. I'm not worried, but I can understand some worry here.
Yeah, I'm going to have a little worry. All tight ends this week, it seemed like just all the elite ones just completely pooped the bed.
True.
So pretty bad all around. But
who are you going to trade him for? Another tight end who's stunk it up?
Yeah, Juwan Johnson or something? No, you're not going to do that.
So boy.
DeAndre Swift, he got 70% of the snaps. That was a weird offense. 92 passing yards from Caleb Williams.
How you feel about Swift is it's a shot for shot projection of what do you think about the Bears offense going forward? How much of week 1 do you think is real? I wasn't huge on Swift before. I understood the argument. He's talented. The offense has a lot of talent, so this should work. But it's just been so long. But also he was good early on last year with the Eagles. I don't think that how you feel about him either way, or if you were neutral, kind of like I was, should change here. But it was ugly. It was ugly for sure.
I'm going to jump around a few other guys here. Michael Pittman, I have 0 worries. He got 8 targets. We were talking about Anthony Richardson and how he's throwing these deep bombs. We're going to talk about another player there in just a minute, but not worried about Michael Pittman. Deontay Johnson, any?
I am. So I think you got to be crazy to start any of your Panthers week 2. Facing a Jim Harbaugh Chargers team that's looking to run it to 2-0. They just erased, the Raiders offense in week 1, other than Madison, which we'll get to. I think you got to quarantine the whole thing. I mean, Bryce Young just has not been nearly good enough in the NFL to trust here. This whole offense is looking pretty suspect right now.
DK Metcalf, he got the Patrick Surtain treatment, so I'm not too terribly worried about that one. Those games are going to happen, but
start him again.
Something to be mindful of when you're playing the Broncos, because he is a shutdown corner, so that is something that could happen. Will Levis, last guy we're going to talk about here. Will Levis, you tell me you were kind of a pound on the table for him a little bit. I head coach for the Titans comes out, says we would have been better if we punted the ball on first down every single drive. What does that say about their team?
So, I mean, that's a hilarious quote, and I love that Callahan just completely drug his quarterback like that. But actually, the quote came from, a longer monologue by Callahan where he said, it's like, you're a parent and your kid, you tell them not to do something 100 times, and then what do? They do it anyway, and they come back to you crying with having smashed their finger in the door. It sounded like, Callahan's not holding week 1 against him. He knows that they have stuff to work on. I mean, so do the Bears. Obviously, both those teams got to figure everything they did in week 1, crumple it up, throw it out. It was terrible. So I mean, I'm not more worried than I was about Will Levis, which was already I'm fairly worried. I mean, this could go bad, but I am not. I mean, the Bears defense might be really good. We might get to the end of the season and go, wow, Bears defense was a top 5 unit. Who knew? So, and now they get to go home against the Jets. So probably not going to get much better for Levis anytime soon. But I'm not super worried.
Gotcha. All right, drop candidates. We're going to speed through these ones. You stop me if there is a player that you are not willing to drop or you are questioning whether you should or should not. Okay? All right. Jordan Love in a 1-quarterback league.
Stop. I think he has, per game, when he's back, top 5 production potential. I mean, he showed us that in an off game on weird Brazilian, soccer turf.
Yeah, that was awful field.
And the Eagles secondary is, nothing that you need to worry about. But, I mean, with these receivers having an off game and completing, again, 50% of his passes, still gives you solid quarterback 1 production. I like Love too much to float him. Even if it's for whatever flavor of the week, Mayfield, Derek Carr. No, I'm not. I'm definitely not doing it. Personally.
Gotcha. I think I'm in the drop field, but I understand where you're coming from. Most of my leagues, I can put out players in IR, so that's kind of a little bit of a handicap that I've got. But if I can't, I got to have a deep bench, like 6-7 players. It's going to be tough.
Although if your league has IR and you already have it plugged up, presumably you have it with Jonathan Brooks or guys like that, where it's
then Love can go.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm dumping Brooks personally.
You're dumping Brooks?
Look at the Panthers' offense.
Yeah, but look what the running backs did there.
For me, I want a quarterback that I know I can start over a running back that this team might win 1 game. I mean, they really might. They got beat like dogs by the Saints. You really want to hold on to this?
I have to tell you,
I was
you're
making Brooks build, my friend. You are all about Brooks.
No. I was making a parlay this week for the games, and it was like a 5 or 6 legs, and I didn't really check it towards the end, and I hit submit, and I didn't realize I took the under on Bryce Young 0.5 touchdowns. Like 0.5 touchdowns. And I was like, oh crap, I meant to pick the over. Like he could throw 1 touchdown. And then it hit. And I was like, oh, let's go.
He ran for one.
Touchdown.
He ran for one.
It did not matter. Let's go through these guys a little bit more. Rashad Bateman, Dontavian Wicks.
Had to go right at my boy, huh?
I had to go straight at him. Jaylen Warren.
I mean, who are you dropping him for? I guess. I mean, I would hold on to him unless we're talking about like Jordan Mason or somebody like that. But yeah. No, sure.
Tyler Algier, Trey Benson. That's a big name, I feel like. But Connor got like all of the work, especially on the first drive. It was like every single play was going to Connor.
Trey Benson was the most overdrafted player in fantasy football.
He was, which doesn't mean he can't be worth it. But his usage here early on, just like Blake Corum, who I think is another name we got to bring up, absolutely zero work in the Rams game.
True.
So Caleb Williams, you dropping him? I know you're a big quarterback stepper. It seems like with Jordan Love up there still.
I mean, if you took Caleb, you're probably in a late quarterback situation. Are you really just going to dump him after 1 game to go chase 4 touchdowns from Baker Mayfield? I mean, I'm not going to tell you not to consider it, but personally, I'm staying in on Caleb. This offense is too good. I mean, he rushing floor. No, I'm staying in personally.
Okay. I think I would go with the stream of the week outside of Caleb. I get the upside though.
That's fair.
Certainly.
Totally fair.
Tajay Spears.
I'm saying hold. I'm saying hold.
Spears.
The Callahan comes out and says, "Hey, this we should have had more of an even split." It'd be one thing if Pollard ran away with the backfield and the offense was good, but it was terrible. So that kind of impugns the idea that Pollard is going to run away with this thing. So yeah, I say hold Spears.
Yeah, Pollard did have like kind of the breakaway touchdown. I don't know, maybe 30 yards out or something like that.
He was the only good part of the offense for sure.
He did. They split as far as the snap percentage, about 50-50. There, Roma Dunze, I guess it's kind of, we have to figure out what's going on with his knee before that. I'm holding him if anything.
You took him too high to cut him already.
Yeah, Cole Kmet, my sit of the week.
Dump him. Get him gone. No.
Dump him for anybody else. Jalen Polk, I can't sit on him anymore. There's some other wide receivers we're going to be talking about today that I would much rather have.
Polk was a 1-game tryout. If he doesn't hit week 1, sorry, give me the next guy here for sure.
Much like Dontavian Wicks, who we've already mentioned. It's like we wanted to see his workload. It was nothing. It was the wide receiver 4.
City. He's dropping everything.
Yeah. So, I have Adonai Mitchell in the drop candidates, but we also have him in the add candidates.
It's
So
a weird situation here.
yeah. So to basically say, no, we're not dropping Mitchell. We like what Richardson's doing there. Some deep plays that should have been his,
For sure.
but just missed him. They were trying to get him involved, and it's a rookie in week 1. So yeah, I'm holding on to Mitchell, even though we didn't quite see it. It'll happen. Dalton Schultz.
I say cut him, man.
Yeah.
Where's the ceiling? Like, they got so many receivers here now. You see how much they were running Mixon week 1? I mean, the Colts run defense
carries, I think,
was stout, and they said, we don't care. We're going to punch Joe Mixon straight through your face no matter what, and they did. So between that and the receivers, I'm out on Schultz, man. What are they going to throw to him? Why would they?
Yeah. Some other names I have in here, which are funny because I think that they were drafted, but they're obvious drop candidates. I feel like Bryce Young, Daniel Jones. Are
we talking drop candidates in fantasy or from their NFL rosters?
From NFL rosters, right? Luke McCaffrey, Rico Dowdle.
I'm holding Dowdle.
Zeke got so much work.
Yeah, Zeke got the touchdown, sure. He's the argument's still the same. I think he's a McCaffrey guy. I'm holding him. But you know, I mean, if we're talking about him or Jordan Mason, okay, yeah, sure, Jordan Mason. Yeah. But him or some of the other guys we're going to talk about, I don't know.
Yeah. And last one I'm going to touch on here, Tyrone Tracy. He was a guy I was kind of pounding the table for. We didn't really see much in week 1. Giants look horrible. I don't see how they get in a game script where Tyrone Tracy is going to be able to be used.
I mean, yeah, the Giants were bad. I mean, yeah.
If you can hold him.
So I won't fault anybody for dumping him because you can go chase, J.K. Dobbins or
yeah.
Are you going to hang on to a guy who's not a starter on an offense that's probably bad? I mean, that's
probably
bad is like the nicest way I could even put it to. So dump Tracy
is a very, very nice way to put there. All right, so
no one's going to beat you for Tyrone Tracy.
Exactly. So you kind of already alluded to it. Let's go ahead and hop into the waivers. We're going to start at the running back position. There are 2 names we've got right at the top. They are owned in over 50% of leagues, not by much, 58 and 56%. But if they are there, certainly they are at the top of our list. Sure. I'm curious of the 2, who's higher for you in this hierarchy. J.K. Dobbins, who Chargers running back, just blew up on the scene. He's just out there killing it here in week 1. And then Jordan Mason, the backup running back for the 49ers, who happened to get the start here on Monday Night Football and just acted as if he was Christian McCaffrey out there. Who is higher on your list? It seems like one guy could be a whole season-long value, while Jordan Mason, better offense, higher usage, but maybe a rental.
I understand, but forced to choose between the 2, going with Dobbins, because like you said, he's got theoretically a path here to running away with this backfield. Gus Edwards didn't really do anything week 1. I'm going to say Mason because again, said it in the pod a couple weeks ago, you play to win the game. If McCaffrey winds up on IR, Jordan Mason is going to be he's going to be the Kyron Williams of this season, period. Dobbins, he could. Not saying he couldn't. He definitely could. He looked great. He looked fantastic against the Raiders, okay? I mean, he looked like he was back. This is a guy who's coming off of back-to-back serious leg injuries. We don't know that it's not still a committee here. We really don't. I mean, this could have been a hot hand week here. Not only does he have Gus Edwards in frame, but Kamani Vidal is, they said he's going to handle the third down work. I got to think that he's going to get steadily more involved. Personally, I'm going to go with Mason, but I see the argument for Dobbins, though, clear as day. I'm really concerned about McCaffrey is the thing. Like, to me, it doesn't make sense that the Niners wouldn't decide, you know what, we're not playing to be the champions of September. We're going to shut McCaffrey down for 4 weeks. This is stupid. So that won't surprise me at all if it comes to pass or worse. I mean, we're talking about a calf Achilles here. So that's where I'm at. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm in the Dobbins camp, and just as you mentioned, you could be in either one, and I don't think you're wrong either way. It's kind of
want this Chargers ground game for sure. It's Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, and maybe even just capitalize, on J.K. Dobbins after next week. They get the Panthers this week here. Like, that could be another good game.
That's a big matchup.
The game script suggests that it should be a lot of Dobbins there. I mean, 13 yards per carry, that's kind of unsustainable. I know he had that, whatever it was, a 60-yard rush. So, I mean, that's going to obviously help out. But just as you said, we mentioned it on the undrafted gems, like Jordan Mason was a guy who he would be at the top of our list if anything were to happen to Christian McCaffrey. So might as well put him on the end of your bench. And that's why he's owned. I mean, not because we said it, but that's why he's owned in 50% of leagues, because people understood that whatever running back is back there is going to get a lot of work. Yeah. And it just, that's how it works.
And Mason looked fantastic against the Jets front tonight. I mean, he really underwhelmed me in his limited action previously. Looks like a different player. I mean, he was flying. So yeah, Mason looks good.
And who's gonna be in more positive game scripts, the 49ers or the Chargers? We'd have to, it's the 49ers. So 28 carries in his first outing against one of the best defenses in the league, whether it's the secondary, linebackers, defensive line. You look at it, they're great all around. And I mean, he looked amazing tonight.
For sure.
So yeah, those two are at the top of our list, but we got some other guys here. Justice Hill, tell me just a little bit about him. I mean, not every game script is going to have the Ravens passing the ball, and
right.
Like in the sense where they had to come back in this game, and he outsnapped Derrick Henry. I mean, it was 54-46. We saw the same thing last year with Tajay Spears, where he had his games and he was getting some of the passing down work. I mean, it's the 2-minute drill. Like, they're playing while they're down. They get the Cowboys, Bills, Bengals. I see where they could have a lot more of Justice Hill here coming up. So
potentially, and Hill was probably going to be the top waiver wire target before Dobbins blows up on Sunday, and then the Jordan Mason news. So that quickly bumped him down the pecking order in what was setting up to be an incredibly quiet week for week one for waiver wire running backs. Hill has never been able to stay healthy, is the thing, and who knows how much of what the Ravens showed the Chiefs and us in week one is real. I mean, they could have been kind of deacon the Chiefs out, assuming like, hey, we're going to see you again in January. We're not going to show you anything real. So, I mean, and plus Keaton Mitchell's probably going to be back at some point. So somebody's in your league is, if you have Fab, somebody's going to put up $6, $7, $8 for him. I have a tough time, if you're in a pinch, like a bunch of running backs let you down, or you got winged by McCaffrey, then I see it as kind of like a fallback for if you miss out on Dobbins and Mason. But I'm not that jazzed up on it personally. The pass volume, like Lamar's just not gonna. I don't think he's gonna support it. So,
are you interested at all in the Jags leading rusher in week one, Tank Bigsby?
I saw that. That was crazy. I mean,
yeah, 12 for 73.
They said no receiving work. They said last year we want to take some work off of ETN. They didn't do it. Peterson said the same thing in the spring, so we were like, okay, sure. You said the same thing last year, Doug. No, they really did it, I mean, he was very efficient. It was probably got the Tony Pollard effect a little bit, change of pace. ETN is getting the defense kind of suck and win, especially week one in Southern Florida. Like, yeah, humid. That's a conditioning factor. Yeah, I don't know. I did not see much of this game, but highlights. I don't know what to make of it. What's your gut telling you here?
He brings absolutely zero. If it's a PPR league, I'm not putting even $1 in on him.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he brings nothing. He's better for the opposing defense if he's in the game and they're passing the ball to him, because it just deflects off his hands. It's like this magazine back here,
Wow.
Fantasy Index magazine. While it's great for fantasy rankings and everything like that, it is not great for catching footballs, and that's what his hands are made out of. It just slips right out of him. So. Would not a great analogy, but I would not recommend Tank Bigsby in any kind of PPR
It
league.
works for a tie-in to remind folks, check out our in-season weekly rankings for waiver wire pickups, who to start, who to sit. Head on over to thefantasyindex.com/store to get your subscription to our in-season content today.
You don't want to slip down the leaderboards. Certainly right there. Good call to action. I would say Tank Bigsby, he's not at the top of my list. I like Justice Hill more than him. I like the next guy more than him. Running backs, it's really hard outside of Dobbins and Mason, who, again, are owned in a little bit over 50% of the leagues. Right. So there's not a lot of guys here. Alexander Madison, I mean,
no.
It was the 30-yard touchdown down the side. I know you weren't big on Zamir White, but
I'm not, but I'm even smaller on Madison. If I'm 5'4" on Zamir White, I'm Vernon Troyer on Alexander Madison for sure. Yeah, I'm not one play. I mean, it was a nifty play. I mean, he went that one got you.
Isn't that mini me?
Yeah, I'm mini me on Madison. It was a nice play where he went down the sideline. We're gonna have to stop the podcast, folks. We lost Colt Williams. It was a nice play. Broke some tackles and he flashed some juice. Hey, good for you, Madison. This is still Alexander Madison we're talking about here. The Raiders certainly showed us nothing to be excited about in terms of, I got to get me a piece of this Raiders offense in week 1. So, but I mean, it's maybe nobody survives here. I mean, Zamir White, he was already a volume. He needed like Rashad White level control here. If he can rally and get it, we didn't see signs of that here in week 1. But they were, game script went against them pretty early on. They couldn't get anything going. So yeah, I'm not even a $0 bid. I'll hang on to my, Chuba Hubbard, my Chase Brown over chasing 30-yard touchdown by Madison for sure.
Played 60% of the snaps to White's 38, so that may be something to monitor. They play the Ravens here next week, so expecting
the Raiders also scored 10 points, so was it effective?
Right, exactly. Last running back we have here, Jaleel McLaughlin. Owned in about half of leagues, surprisingly. That's a lot more than I thought. Bo Nix, I mean, he loves dumping it off. We're going to be talking about another wide receiver here in a moment, but I mean, what was it? Five targets, 5 reception. How many yards do you think he got?
He had 5 receptions?
Yeah.
I mean, he was not great as a receiver, like in terms of per play. I'm going to say he got like 30 yards.
Let's go 29 yards less than that. He got 1 yard on 5 receptions. Yeah, so
Jaleel.
That's kind of how it goes. He lost a fumble as well, so there's that.
I mean, that was the whole Broncos offense. Like the Broncos, I think, went for about 0.7 yards per play against the Seahawks. It was pitiful. The to me, like, yes, the results were terrible. Jaleel is a great candidate for, like, if you don't have the waiver priority, you don't want to burn the fab, whatever, trying to get Dobbins and Mason, you're not going to win anyway. Wait and see if somebody in your league drops McLaughlin, and if they do, swoop in and get you some McLaughlin, because yes, the results were poor. Javonte did not play well, which was already something where it was like, hey, if Javonte struggles, Jaleel could start to stage a little bit of a hostile takeover here. He got the receiving work. Yes, he didn't do anything with it. That's bad. that's not good. But the Broncos are going to keep throwing to the running backs. We know this, okay? There's volume to be had here. If you're in half PPR, certainly if you're in PPR, you care about Jaleel McLaughlin here very much based on usage from week 1. Yes, it didn't go well. They were in Seattle. Playing in Seattle as a rookie on the road week 1, that's rough, okay? So, yeah, I like Jaleel, and I certainly like him if somebody else in your league drops him, you can get him for free.
Yeah, it's something to remind you guys. Like, while you have to drop somebody to pick somebody up, people are going to be doing that too. So see who gets dropped down to the waiver wire, and make sure if somebody's tilting on Drake London. That's a little bit extreme, but if somebody's tilting, then take full advantage of that by all means. Even in a trade, if you can't pick them up off waivers.
Yes, if someone drops Drake London in your league, you should probably grab them.
On to wide receivers. Adonai Mitchell, we kind of talked about him a little bit. He's owned in a little bit over 50% of leagues, but he would be somebody who's closer to the top of our list, I think. Again, Anthony Richardson just missed him on a couple of deep bombs that would have been touchdowns. He's separating, like, it was I think it was Doolin and Alec Pierce. I mean, both those guys got deep drive-ending touchdowns, which that's kind of Anthony Richardson's MO. It's dink dunk, whole bunch of really bad plays, and then really deep bombs.
We didn't include Alec Pierce on this list because neither of us really believe here. That might turn out to have been the wrong call on our parts, okay? I mean, Anthony Richardson only completed 9 passes on Sunday and still had like 220 yards passing, okay? I mean, he could have one of the great deep ball renaissance seasons of all time in him here. I mean, his accuracy on short to intermediate stuff scared me in the home opener against the Texans. It did, but his deep ball works. And Pierce, three targets, 3 catches, 125 yards. It's certainly in like 14 team leagues, Pierce is a target here for sure. I mean, but I love Adonai. Like I don't know how much of the game you caught. I watched. That was my primary watch in the early slate on Sunday. Adonai Mitchell should have had 125 yards receiving in this game for sure. I mean, he slipped on a coming out of his break in a deep out. Richardson overthrew him by a country mile on a wide open walk-in touchdown. I mean, it was. Is that what you're laughing at?
Is that the one? Is that the one up the right sideline?
Yeah. Football never even came back in frame after it.
Yeah,
after
he's
it,
like, after
yeah. So that was bad. And I mean, that's the Anthony Richardson experience. But Mitchell is a perfect fit with the one thing Richardson does pretty well as a passer currently, which is heave the long ball. So yeah, I like Mitchell. He there's only one other guy here that I think I like as much or more. So yeah.
I know who you're going to say before we get to him.
Mm-hmm.
Alec Pierce, yards per catch, 41.6.
average depth of target, 38 yards, I believe it was. So
yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, oh my goodness. Let's go ahead and get to your next guy. All I put in the show doc here was Luke victory lap. Tell me a little bit about your guy who got the very first touchdown of Week 1 Sunday here in the NFL.
I got the need for Rashid Shaheed, baby. Yes, 44% owned. So he's out there in a fair amount of leagues, and I mean, it was a shame that the Panthers were turned out to be a Division II college football team because the Saints just boat raced them from Jump Street. So Shaheed just runs by the whole defense for a 60-yard touchdown early on, 59-yard. So that was great. But the Saints passing game just kind of kicked it into neutral after that. I think Carr only threw it like 22 times on the day, so a huge drop in his passing volume. I think Shaheed he's going to give you certainly another 4 to 6 goose eggs in all likelihood. But Clint Kubiak is the new offensive coordinator in New Orleans. He showed us exactly what we were hoping to see in Week 1. It was against the Panthers, though, so we don't know how real it was. We're going to find out next week against Dallas. If Shaheed does it again against Dallas, okay, now we're talking weekly flex candidate. Okay, I mean he's got that kind of electric big playability, and now we've got a Shanahan disciple running the show here. So finally, we might have the right pieces of the puzzle connecting here for Shaheed to actually be a guy.
And Carr just loves. I mean, he might love him more than you. I don't think he is. I don't think anybody can. Not even his parents or anything like that. But
I have Rashid Shaheed's name in my Twitter bio. I don't think Derek Carr does.
but yeah, Olave 2 targets, 2 receptions, 11 yards. Like that's probably not going to happen again. But it's like he has it out for him for whatever reason. Yeah, Shaheed should be on a lot of people's radars. Just as you mentioned, if we see something here next week against Dallas, then yeah, he's got some flex appeal for sure. Greg Dortch. Hey, a name that I didn't think would be bringing up, but he did much better than Marvin Harrison Jr. here in Week 1. I mean, he had 8 targets.
Marvin Harrison Jr., Colt?
I am not, but I am. Again, I'm seeing how angry these people are, and I'm trying to get them early and often because it's just coming off of probably a loss if they started these players who got them 2-1-0 points, 6 catches, 47 yards for Dortch, a PPR kind of guy. I expect them. I think Gannon already came out and said that we're going to get Marvin Harrison Jr. kind of worked into the offense a little bit more. It didn't really work for him. Yikes. But Dortch is somebody who should be on your radar, I think, in a PPR league.
Yeah, I think his targets are going to be pretty consistent.
Yeah, same thing with this next guy. We're not high on the offense. We kind of already talked about Tyrone Tracy and the Giants offense, but Wan'Dale Robinson is also on that offense. They couldn't run the ball, so they tried to run it through Wan'Dale Robinson. I mean, there are 6 players that got double-digit targets here in Week 1. Wan'Dale Robinson is one of them. He got 11 with a pathetic 5.2 average depth of target. And the Giants stink. I mean, but Baker Mayfield showed that you can pass all over the Commanders. They get the Commanders here this week. Another kind of PPR fill in if you're having Puka Nacua problems or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, 12 targets is 12 targets. I can't. It's hard to argue with that. I personally would probably lean Dortch. Honestly, come on. We know what the Giants' offense, the ceiling is here. We're pretty sure we do. The Cardinals, I mean, they came out and went up 17-0 on the Bills, lickety split. So, yes, sure, they wind up losing that game.
Yeah, they did.
Which, I mean, come on, Cardinals.
Cardinals fashion.
Don't Cardinals so hard, Cardinals. But yeah, I mean they have potential. They have potential to be like a top half of the league unit. Giants don't. So so yeah, I would lean Dortch there personally. But I mean, in a PPR format, deeper league, either one of them, sure.
Is this
Not
next
so much
guy?
This next guy.
I was going to ask, is he on your radar at all? I'm going to be completely transparent. Did not scout this man at all. Rookie wide receiver for the Broncos. I didn't know he was on the depth chart at all. Devon Vele?
Vale? I think I'm going to go with Vale for now.
Vale? Okay. Yeah. We'll have to research that on a little bit more. Obviously 0% rostered if we're not too aware of this. But Bo Nix, I mean, he's trying to keep his completion percentage really high. He's going short. We talked about the McLaughlin problem. If 5 catches for 1 yard, he did his best impression of that. Average depth of target of just 2 yards, 8 targets, 8 receptions, 39 yards. I mean, it's something to monitor, I think, like, in week 1 with a rookie, 8 targets.
There's a possibility that Sean Payton has in his contract that if a rookie quarterback ever has an 80% completion percentage for him, he gets like a 10% ownership stake in the Broncos. Like it's time to start exploring the possibilities here, guys. Vale, I mean, whatever. Vale's the guy that Sean Payton fell in love with over the summer for whatever reason. Marvin Mims just on milk cartons. Nobody knows where Marvin Mims is. Somebody needs to go search party. Marvin Mims, please, God, come back.
That's what gets him the share. As long as Mims isn't on the field, he's happy.
Right. So yeah, I'm not gonna chase this here, but if he does anything like it again next week, I mean, how do you not? If he goes into week 3 with 17 receptions for 60 yards on the season, like, it's horrible. But in full PPR, I mean, it's flex territory. So
we'll take it.
Yeah, I'm hoping it doesn't happen again, but it might.
So Adonai Mitchell and Raheem Shaheed are at the top of my list. The next 2 guys I think are pretty close to the top, but certainly a tier down. I've got Brandon Cooks, wide receiver 2 for the Cowboys. I mean, he just is overlooked in a lot of leagues. He's only owned in 40% of leagues. And I mean, people are sleeping on Brandon Cooks. He's good every single year.
Comatose. Yeah. I mean, he did start slow last year, and I think a lot of people got out on him at that point. But yeah, I mean, he was good. He was good the second half of the season. He went up with 8 touchdowns. Gets another touchdown courtey of the CeeDee Lamb effect, which is that the defense is so focused on CeeDee Lamb that you're going to see a lot of one-on-one coverage. So, yeah, I mean, Cooks, again, he's not going to push for like 1,100 yards or anything like that, but he could wind up being like a wide receiver 3 pretty steadily here. Dallas offense looked, I mean, they didn't pump out the yardage, but again, week 1. Other than that, the Dallas offense looked fine against a good Cleveland defense. So, yeah.
Last 2 wide receivers here, we're going to kind of bang them out together. Demarcus Robinson and Tyler Johnson. Do you have a read on either one? I'm in the Demarcus Robinson camp as the wide receiver 2 while Puka Nacua is on IR. But Tyler Johnson was a guy that I was kind of high on, but he was obviously buried on the depth chart there for the Bucs. You're talking about people on milk cartons. I think, I think he certainly had his place on there before. Yep. But in the second half, I mean, Johnson got 5 targets. Robinson got, 4 targets. It's kind of what we're looking at. That's when Puka Nacua was out of the game. Obviously, Cooper Kupp is going to be hyper-targeted. We're talking about the CeeDee Lamb effect. Cooper Kupp is going to do the same thing over there, but somebody else has to eat in this offense. He's, Stafford's going to be throwing for about 300 yards a game.
Yeah, I guess it's DeMarcus Robinson to start, but I wouldn't. I understand, like, especially if you lost Nacua or whatever, you're dealing with like a DeAndre Hopkins. All of a sudden, he's very questionable going forward. If you're hurting at wide receiver, I understand wanting to plunk some fab into this because the Rams, especially in like PPR leagues, the Rams offense can get you such cheap reception totals. Mm-hmm. I don't buy whoever it is in week 2, whether it's DeMarcus Robinson, Tyler Johnson. They're going to be the 2. I think they're the Tutu Atwell of the early season. It could wind up being Tutu Atwell, who's still here and lurking in the mist to potentially randomly get 7 receptions next week. There's just no predictability or repeatability here for me.
I laugh. I just have to be transparent with it. But I know Tutu Atwell's a very skinny player. We all know that. He's 165 pounds. But whenever I looked up to see if there was any whenever I looked to see if there's any news on him, because you were like, yeah, he wasn't really in the game. They didn't use him, but it could be a 2-2 at will week. It says 2-2 at will, invisible in defeat. I don't know why it made me laugh so hard. I'm just like, there's like that skit on Family Guy where the lady goes sideways and she's just invisible. I digress.
We're getting a little strays from the fantasy update bot. Wow. Jeez,
it really is. But that's it for wide receivers. Again, Adonai Mitchell, Shaheed at the top, and then whatever your flavor of Brandon Cooks, probably third.
Yeah, I like Cooks. I mean, I wouldn't fault anybody for putting him even over, Mitchell, who we like Mitchell, but that's a very upside chasing play. Maybe that's not what you're in the market for here, and we could be wrong. I mean, the Colts passing game is volatile as far as we know in the near term. So, yeah, I wouldn't fault anybody for going Cooks.
You were saying we're going to get on the tight ends, but you were saying Dobbins and Mason would be at the top of your radar, which they very well should be. But if you're hurting at tight end, you might want to look this way. Isaiah Likely, I think everybody saw it was a primetime game. It was Thursday Night Football. Yep. Went out there, put on a show. He's available in more than half of leagues. I feel like that should be kind of obvious because
that's going to end.
Everybody got Mark Andrews, but he goes out there, 9 receptions, 111 yards, and a touchdown. He's the real deal. It should have
been 116 yards and 2 touchdowns, but for his pinky toe being over the line, so it was almost a huge game.
It was a monster game already, especially for the tight end position, but it could have been so much more. I mean, he's the real deal. They're using these 2 tight end sets. They're using him like a wide receiver. You watched him at Coastal Carolina. He's got a lot of speed, for a tight end, and he's athletic. And we want athletic tight ends. The Ravens seem like they just want to use him in that sense. I'm not over pursuing Likely. This might likely be his best game of the season, but I think he's certainly got some. I mean, who else are you starting? Are you looking at Juwan Johnson or whoever else had like a decent week this week? Like Likely's got to be up close to the top.
The Ravens aren't going to put Likely back in the lamp here at this point. Yeah. Why would they do that? Like unless he struggles and defenses figure him out or something. Why would they? It was very effective. So, yeah, what happened in week 1 where the Chiefs were just giving them Likely in the flat over and over and over, that's probably not going to happen. Defenses are going to adjust. But Likely's the wide receiver 2 here, not Bateman. Darn it. Sorry, I was wrong. That's how we have to think about it going forward is Flowers is the nominal wide receiver 1. To caught 6 balls for 37 yards week 1. Get that out of here.
All those passes were behind the line or at the line.
Right. I mean, continuation of how they used him last year. I mean, there's no meaningful expansion to, how they deploy him. So, and I mean, Likely they gave him a lot of the same balls and he did better with them. He did more with them for sure. So, yeah, they're Likely's not going away. Can Andrews still produce with him on the field? Sure. But Likely's not going away. So, yeah, he's the number 1 tight end of the claim of the week for sure. And if you're serious about him, you want him, you've got a Dalton Schultz, Pat Freiermuth situation at tight end that you need to fix, you're going to have to pony up. I mean, if it's a waiver priority situation, he needs to be probably your top claim. If it's fab, 30%. I mean, what's the
everybody's hurting at tight end, so you are right with that.
Do you want him or not? You're not going to get him if you come weaker than that. So
that's true. And this is the time to pony up for players because if you think you're going to get them for the whole you'll get them for the whole season if you get them now, assuming health, and you're going to assume that for everybody.
Don't fall into that fallacy with your fab of I got to save. I got to do 17 $5 claims. No. That's stupid. Don't do that.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. A guy who was drafted way ahead of Likely in almost every fantasy draft, Brock Bowers, comes out 24% target share here in week 1. They moved him around a lot. They moved him in the slot. That's where they used him a lot. 6 receptions on 8 targets, 58 yards. I mean, just as they did in Georgia, they used him like a wide receiver in that sense where they just, I mean, there's not much you could say about Brock Bowers. Likely or Brock Bowers, who, if you could only pick one, Likely is going to cost you a lot more, I feel like. If Brock Bowers is out there on waivers, assuming.
I'm going to say Bowers has a higher roster percentage coming out of the draft. I'll say Bowers. I'll say Bowers.
Little upside.
Likely's ceiling obviously is very tantalizing. He looked fantastic week 1.
He did.
But Andrews is probably not going away, guys. Like that would be pretty surprising. Other than Devontae Adams, who do the Raiders have? Like Jacoby Myers. I mean, that's a Josh McDaniels era holdover. You know, they could just kind of scuttle him at the end of the bench if they wanted to and just wait out the contract. The Raiders are serious about Brock Bowers. They love, as well they should be. So yeah, I would go Bowers there. But I like they had a hell of a game. I understand if you're tempted to go the other way.
And I got another guy here. This is like it's not a deeper play, but I think it's kind of a streaming tight end. Mike Gesicki, now on the Cincinnati Bengals. He barely missed a touchdown. It just bobbled just a little bit, but it was an athletic play, and that's kind of what we want to see. T. Higgins still banged up. If he were to miss another game, or if, the offense were to struggle a little bit with Jamar Chase not having so many reps, who also had a down week. I mean, they get the Chiefs, who we're talking about Isaiah Likely. He did all of that against the Chiefs. So they were susceptible to the tight end position. If there's any kind of upside there, I'd go with the athletic tight end, who might be the wide receiver too, in a sense, for a good offense. So Mike Gesicki is kind of a deeper play, but somebody I'm maybe using is a flexible tight end here this week.
I mean, if he comes down with that touchdown, we're probably talking about him as a waiver wire guy. I mean, it was a touchdown initially. I mean, it was that close. So yeah, I like that. I mean, we can't say with a straight face that we don't think the Bengals are going to be playing catch up in this game based on what they showed us in week 1. I mean, they were, again, Bengals early season struggles is just a thing, I guess. They were terrible. They could not figure out the Patriots, for crying out loud. So yeah, we have to think that they're going to be forced into a pass heavy game script here. Yeah, you could do a lot worse than Gesicki here for sure.
Certainly. All right, stream of the week at quarterback. I think we're both in the same camp on this top guy.
Yep.
It is a Baker Mayfield at the Lions. He just came off almost a 300-yard game. It was 289 yards and 4 touchdowns. Now he gets the Lions, who have been susceptible through the pass. They can get beat through the air. So, that's got to be a top 12 quarterback play here. Then we've got Matthew Stafford at the Cardinals. Cardinals defense, absolutely not it. We saw what Josh Allen did. Josh Allen just kind of put the whole team on his back and said, I'll do it myself, kind of like Thanos.
Yep.
But Stafford, just as last year, he was throwing for a lot of yards, not necessarily a lot of touchdowns. If he just gets, we're always begging for more than one touchdown, and sometimes we get it, sometimes we don't. But we'll take the yardage, and the touchdown should come. 317 yards and a touchdown here just this last week. But yeah, against Cardinals, I'll roll with Stafford as well. Now, we couldn't get to everybody. And, if you've got questions on, who I should put at the top of my list, show us your team. Hit us up on Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, X. You can find Luke at dluke87. You can find myself at _Colt Williams. You can also hit us up on fantasyindex.com, where the podcast will be posted. Hit us in the comments on YouTube. You can find us on YouTube as well if you like to see our pretty faces and everything like that as well. Man, this was a good episode. I really like talking about the waiver wire episodes. It's like there wasn't anybody quite at the top that Jordan Mason and Dobbins feel like hits, but they're just overly rostered in some leagues. And so it just feels like I'm not going to be able to get them because I feel like I play with smart players.
But there's a lot of 10-team leagues out there, and there's a lot of leagues out there where, they draft, and then, nobody really pays attention again until the week 1 action is in the can. So there's a lot of people out there that are going to be putting in claims on those two guys for sure, and we wish you luck in those claims coming home successfully for you. All right, that's going to do it for us tonight. We're going to be back with you guys 2 nights from now with our starts and sits for week 2. We look forward to it. We will see you next time.
See you then.
This has been the Fantasy Index Podcast. For more great content, premium rankings, and cheat sheets, head over to fantasyindex.com.